Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Today, I made a decision to do a live all around what actually forms our self esteem. And this month, with it being International Self Esteem Month, I felt very called to talk about the toxic positivity all around the actual beauty industry and things that actually eroded our self esteem. And so I want to just go ahead and right out of the gate give you that this is going to be a trigger warning for some of you that watch this. And do know that giving you a heads up that it is going to be a little bit of a trigger warning. Do know that things that I'm about to talk about may actually trigger you. And it's not obviously meant to be directed towards you, but it's more about education. And it's really more important about the topic around what forms our self esteem. So, what's important to be aware of is that the beauty industry is currently worth over $500 billion globally. The cosmetic surgery industry is roughly around 80 billion and it is continuing to rise. I'm going to say that again. The cosmetic surgery industry is about $80 billion and rising, and the beauty industry is around 500 billion globally. Now, why does this matter with it being International Self-Esteem Month? Well, the truth is we have been fed a crock of bullshit that the way that we look, the clothes that we buy, all support our self-esteem. Now, let me be transparent. When I go out and buy a cute new little outfit and I come home and get ready and doll up, do I feel sexy? Absolutely. Do I feel beautiful? Absolutely. Do I have cosmetic? Yes, I do. I have makeup. Have I had cosmetic surgery? I sure have. My breasts are not mine. I got them when I was 18 years old because I had low self-esteem, which we're going to talk about today. But I want to be very, very, very mindful of this conversation because the reality of it is that over 90% of cosmetic procedures that we're seeing now real time are done on women. 90% of cosmetic procedures are being done on women. Now, up to 70% of women are reporting that they have body obviously dysmorphia and they're dissatisfied with their body. Now, I would be lying to you if I told you like, oh, my body is so sexy and beautiful. No, I'm in perimenopause. I gained 10 pounds in the last year. But the reality of it is that learning different practices and different ways of feeling more self-confident in my body versus what I look is so important, and it's now crucial more than ever. And see, it's not just about beauty, it's about pressure. We are inundated, obviously, with social media, peer-to-peer, obviously, and our family of origin, our relationships that we're in. We are in an epidemic now more than ever where self-esteem impacts at least up to 80% of women on any given day. And 1 out of every 2 women are struggling with self-esteem and they are displeased with their body or something on their body. Now, this last week, I wrote a blog talking about why self-esteem is not a mindset issue. It's actually a body. It stems in the body. And the reason why that is because when we are born into a family of origin, i.e. a mom, i.e. a dad, our nervous system and our emotional foundation is really dependent on our primary caregivers and our family of origin. And so when we talk about our family of origin, and I'm going to give some examples about this because I think it's super, super crucial. When we talk about our first imprinting, when we have primary caregivers that obviously didn't feel emotionally attuned to, if we didn't have emotional consistency from our parents, right? They were in, they were out, they oscillated in. And if our caregivers responded or didn't respond in a way that helped us to feel that our needs mattered, helped us to feel that our emotions are safe, helped us believe that we are valuable and worthy without fucking performing. So let's go back to emotional safety. There are a lot of women that, and even men, I want to be very transparent, that when they were in a family of origin, if there was emotional reactivity, or if they witnessed emotional reactivity from their family of origin, this can easily create an imprinting in the nervous system that in order for me to be loved and get attention, I need to be quiet. I need to be good. I need to help. I need to do more around the house. And I don't want to show too much emotions because I don't want to be considered a burden. So I am going to suppress, I'm going to self monitor, and I am going to adapt survival strategies in order to be liked, loved, and given attention. Now, fast forward into adolescent, which is our teenage years, right? This is where we start to model what we really saw in our imprinting year. Now, before I go into modeling and peer to peer, is that being very clear that if in your imprinting years, which is 0 to 7 in particularly, if there was trauma, which is big T or little t, if there was emotional injury, do know that this all impacts your self-esteem because your nervous system, again, adapts to either staying alert, keeping quiet, staying small, staying useful, needing to do, needing to please. Hi, have we met? Recovering caretaker here. And all of the while, we also too adapt to avoid attention because maybe attention wasn't safe. So do know that in our family of origin and what we experienced in our family of origin, and if there was any trauma, big T or little t, this absolutely impacts our self-esteem because our self-esteem is linked to our body. And I'm going to talk about how that happens. Now, when we get into adolescent, which is our mirroring years, right? This is where we start to obviously have peer-to-peer relationships. Now we're in a social media epidemic now more than ever. I just happened to watch a docu-series last weekend with Kate Winslet and her daughter Freya, and it was called I Am Ruth. And this docu-series really talked about that when we have a child and or adolescent and they are watching social media and we see some women are skinnier, some women go get all these cosmetic procedures and they're wearing a certain clothing. By natural, we are comparing ourselves because we are hardwired for connection and belonging. I see this all the time in men and women. They're buying clothes to fit in, they're buying big houses, big cars, they're buying these things to fit in because, again, in their adaptation, in their imprinting years, they got the subliminal message. I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard, I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard. And this impacts us into adulthood. So I'll give you an example how this happens in peer-to-peer. If you were bullied in your adolescent, again, this is obviously right when you hit hormonal phase. For women, it's when they start their bleed. For men, it's where they start to get a surge of testosterone. And this is usually around middle school, give or take. What we start to see happening is that during that period of time, we are highly influenced from our peers. We are highly influenced from those that are around us. And again, if we were bullied and or picked on, I'll share a real-time story, that also too impacts our self-esteem. It erodes at our self-esteem. And this is where what is developed is what's called neuro being brain, ception being body. Neuroception is a part of our brain and our nervous system where we are always scanning our environments for familiarity. I'm going to say that again. Neuroception, neuro being brain, ception being body. We are always scanning our environment for potential threat. So, real time. I was bullied a lot in my adolescent years, multiple times. And it was always by women. And I was short. I was like very, very tiny, very small. I was younger than everyone in my class because I started later in school. And so I was constantly bullied and picked on. Now, fast forward into my adulthood, into my mid 20s, into my 30s, what I had found was that when I was around a group of women that were unfamiliar, I would stay quiet. I would play small. I would drink a lot of alcohol to feel comfortable to be in that experience because my neuroception was going back into the database of a lived experience that women in large groups are a threat. Women in large groups were a threat. And this absolutely eroded at my self-esteem. It made me judge myself. It made me wonder why I couldn't hang out with large groups of women. I obviously compared myself physiologically to these women. So I want to let the plane land that self-esteem is 1000% in the body, and the body has a memory of past lived experiences. So again, self-esteem does not grow from thinking self-confidence. It doesn't grow from filling your closet full of clothes to make you look good. It doesn't go from having tons of cosmetic surgeries because, hello, been there, done that. It comes from new lived experiences where you are placing yourselves in experiences that once eroded at your self-confidence, that once eroded at your self-trust, that once eroded at you being able to be seen and to be heard and accepted for 100% of who the fuck you are. And so obviously you could tell I'm super passionate about this because the reality of it is when your nervous system feels safe, okay, you stop chasing approval. You stop negotiating your fucking needs. You stop shrinking to be acceptable, and you start to live your authentic self. Now, why this is so pivotal now more than ever in International Self-Esteem Month is because we owe it to ourselves to create a list of who, what erodes at our self-esteem, who and what erodes at our self-esteem. And when we get really brutally honest with who in our life erodes at our self-esteem, what erodes at our self-esteem and self-worth, this is where we start to do the work. This is where we start to work with, obviously, myself as a somatic therapist, joining group programs to where you're witnessed in your authenticity. And I want to talk about witnessing, and I want to come full circle about this. One of the most transformative things that I have ever witnessed in the 20 years I have been in the mental health field is this. It is a process called witnessing. Now, Lisa Chastain and myself, we host a retreat every single year here in Southern California. And one of the exercises that we take the women through, first and foremost, is what's called witnessing. And witnessing is where we actually can witness, okay, someone or multiple women or multiple men stepping forward in something that is very vulnerable and very real and very alive still in their system that causes them to shrink or close off. Now, I want to be clear, this exercise is not necessarily advised for anyone to just go do. It does require care and supervision from a nervous system perspective. And when we witness each other, okay, in large groups or in women containers and or one-on-one in coaching, you start to heal that part of the nervous system that hardwired a part of your self-esteem that kept you quiet, that kept you adaptable to environments that were still unsafe, that suppressed you, that kept you in high alert. These new lived experiences that I talk about ultimately rewire your nervous system. And when it rewires your nervous system, you ultimately start to create new lived experiences that, one, build your self-esteem, and two, build self-confidence. And last but not least, some of the biggest things that have ever built my self-esteem, it wasn't my breast implants. It wasn't the Louis Vuitton purses that I had. It wasn't the fucking Mercedes car that I drove. It was none of that. What ultimately built my self-esteem was leaving a toxic relationship that was not supporting my needs in any degree. What also helped build my self-trust was also allowing myself to be authentically real on any given day of where I was with my needs. And I wasn't spiritually bypassing saying, oh, I'm okay, I'm good. Because if I wasn't good, I was going to own it and saying, you know what, I'm actually not good. I don't feel good. I feel dismissed. I feel unvalidated. And when I really owned where I was on any given day, that actually built my self-esteem. That also helped me to build self-trust. So as we come full circle with wrapping up this live all around, what actually impacts the self-esteem and creates it, it is our lived experiences. It is our lived experiences. Now, we may be having lived experiences right now that are only reinforcing outdated lived experiences, staying in a toxic relationship, suppressing your actual needs to be seen, to be supported in your family of origin, in your work environment. I know so many women that are afraid to give pushback in their own family of origin because there's a deep-seated fear. If they do that, they're going to be obviously shamed or judged or even ostracized out of the family. And you know what I say to that? Good fucking riddance. Good riddance. I have dedicated my life's work to give women like you who watch this replay permission to reclaim the parts of self that got lost, the parts of self that were shamed, that were quieted, that were judged, that were emotionally dismissed. This is how you reclaim your self-esteem, is by getting back into the body. Because confidence isn't about being louder. It's not being about having 25 million followers on social media. It is about having internal stability in your body, owning your voice in your body without collapsing, shutting down, or dismissing yourself. And if this video landed for you today, I want to give you permission to join myself and Lisa Chastain February 19th, doing a free workshop called Capacity Lab, where I will take you real time all around how do you build a bigger capacity to be seen? How do you build a bigger capacity to be heard? And more importantly, how do you build a bigger capacity to hold wealth and the life that you ultimately want without self-sabotaging? And this is the work. This is what builds self-esteem. This is what builds self-confidence. Not the Louis Vuitton, not the cosmetic industry, not obviously surgical industry. And hey, kudos to you. Been there, done that. No judgment here. I've done it. And what I've realized is none of that ever fucking mattered until I became confident and comfortable within my own skin. Cellulite at 43 or 44, all of it. Embracing my gray hair that's coming through, all of it. Self-esteem is created through lived experiences. Thanks for joining.